You're watching Spotlight, a production of Culture in Maine, York's cultural showcase. I'm Carla Christopher, poet, publisher, and producer. Join me, along with editor, musical guru, and video extraordinaire Jay Schmuck, plus wild outdoorsman and videographer, along with technical extraordinaire Cliff Carn, and all of our friends as we go behind the scenes and get into the underground of what's really going on in the arts and cultural amazing explorations that are happening in South Central Pennsylvania. You'll see everything from art to music to dance to theater, and you'll also get to meet the people who really make it happen, find out how and why, along with some great studio performances, some amazing on-the-street footage. You'll also get the real story, and that's what we're here to shine a spotlight on. Let's go.
A little mysterious, super cool. All the pretty ladies hang out there. All the cool cats hang out there. And there's always like cutting edge. I mean, it's a melting pot of ethnicity as far as who's there. It's awesome. It's just everyone's there. It's a great place.
That's a good answer. But A.D. said Flip Wilson, which I thought was really cool.
Flip Wilson.
The only A.D.Chandler. Mr. Chandler, how are you tonight? What about this talent on the stage?
Way too much. It's excellent.
And it's all for Mike. That's what's crazy. Don Carn down wearing A.D. Chandler. A.D. Chandler, people. A.D.
best, smokiest little hole-in-the-wall joint you can find in this side of the Pecos. You save that for later.
We are here with Johnny Calamari.
Super nicest guy ever, man. He was so, and he would always be willing. I even called him with a friend of mine from way out of town. I said, hey, could you book this friend of me? He's like, yeah, bring him in.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Mike, for everything.
I mean, we deserve to have more music back in this town and to have Mike get better and thrive again.
I know damn well he's been there for every single one of us and solid as hell. And like I think Chris covered it out there about, there's been times where you walk in there and be like, there's nobody there, you played all night. Like, hey, I'll play, for less, it's cool. And he's like, no, won't do it.
My next guest is one of my favorite people in not even just the city, but really in the world. And not only do I love her as a human, I am a complete and total devotee of the products and the store that she runs, which is Paintbox Soapworks. So you can absolutely find them online. It's paintboxsoapworks.com. You can also spot Hayley, and because you could spot you anywhere, sister.
I'm a little hard to miss.
Right now, at tons of local fairs, at First Friday, tabling at different events, and on Facebook. But trust me, these are artisan products that you want to check out. And why did I bring the soap lady on the Arts and Culture Show? Because I love York's commitment to crafters. Yes. And to crafting.
Yeah.
And this idea that, fine art is wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I love talking to fine artists and having their paintings on the show. But that idea that art sort of stops there before it comes into the real world is bananas to me. And I love that York has completely rejected that. Mm-hmm. We are makers. We've always been makers and crafters in history. We're all about hands-on. We're about 3D. We're the factory tour capital of the world. And we love finding ways to make everything a personal expression. Yeah. And to me, that's what makes what you do different from every other soap company I've visited, from every other crafter and maker of handmade soap, that it's not just about the scent. Mm-hmm. It's about like the experience, like Paintbox, take me away. That there's like a theme, there's color. I mean, look at this here. We have The Queen is Dead. What? I didn't even realize this. The Queen is Dead soap. So explain to me the inspiration behind this gold and black soap.
Yeah. Well, as you've touched on, I never just make a bar of soap that will get you clean and that's it. No. There's always multiple layers going on. A lot of my work pulls from pop culture references, and those of your members of the audience of a certain age, the phrase "the Queen is Dead" might sound familiar. It was a Smiths album and a song by the same name.
That is totally your punk rock honey
Oh
soap.
my goodness, yes. And I was a good little goth girl. I went clubbing when I was younger.
Amazing.
And so I wanted to do a black soap. I love black soaps. I don't know why. I love making them. I think the idea that something so dark and so foul looking can get you so clean. I love that dichotomy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was having that song in my head and having the idea of, a black soap, and then just playing with the idea of a queen bee. And
naturally.
The honey.
And so we can see, we have the honeycomb on top, complete with the gold sparkle dust from the honey and the ingredients, blackened honey, glossy leather, and a glittering swirl of smoke. So this is the alchemy that came together to be, if the queen bee of the hive was actually a punk rock club queen, who then died a tragic death and was lifted up in a sparkling, honeyed swirl of golden glitter.
Rises from the glittering ashes, yes.
That's intense. I think I will write that poem as soon as I get home.
It's never just a bar of soap. Never.
That's so cool. Okay, so let's see. Gooseberry Beach.
Yeah.
Ooh, balmy saltwater, sea kelp, spirulina algae, crisp bamboo, and a trace of coolness from wet, dark sand. That is a poem in itself. So is Gooseberry Beach a real place?
It is a real place. It is a beach in the Newport, Rhode Island area. Oh. So I've been making soap for several years. This is year 7.5 now that I've been doing this. And when we take family vacations, I don't shut the shop down. I just put a little announcement out and say, hey, we're going on vacation for a week. Go ahead and place your orders. I'll ship them all when I get back, because I do most of my business online. As kind of a thank you for people being patient and placing their orders while I'm away and waiting until I get back. The instant I get home, I unpack, I do laundry, and I make a batch of soap. And it's a soap based on where we went or what we did. And Gooseberry Beach was the result of our trip to Newport a couple of years ago. And it's this little tiny little kind of crescent moon beach, off the beaten path a little bit. And it's a nice low, even taper out. So when you have small children, it's a great place to take them so you don't have to worry about it. And the sand was dark. It was like a black, not true black sand, but it was, yeah. And there were these great curtains of red algae floating in. So you'd sort of be walking through and you'd have to kind of part it was kind of cool.
Okay, all right, all right. Well, you were the punk queen. You were the punk queen.
Now, if you knew going in that it was there, it would not have been a very nice surprise. But yes, if you knew going in, you're like, okay, this is pretty good. And it had that lovely sort of kelpy, briny smell. So yeah, I came home and I made Gooseberry Beach as just a free thank you going into all of those orders. And it became a favorite, so I make it every year now.
So how did you make that transition? Because this is like the magical question that every artist and crafter has to have that conversation about how do I make that happen.
Yeah.
This idea of I have something I love to do, I have something I have a gift for and that I'm good at, and then I have to figure out a way to make that sustainable.
Yeah, this was not supposed to be. Very honestly, this started out as a whim. This started out as just horsing around and having some fun. I was working a desk job, which I was very good at and paid very well, but was grossly unfulfilling in terms of creativity and kind of hands-on expression.
Okay.
And I had the luxury of being able to work out of the house at that point. So during my breaks, during my downtime, I'd dork around, I'd play around, and I started making just little bits of glycerin soap, where you buy the unscented soap and you melt it down and you add perfume oils, and voila, you've got perfume soap. And I did what you do when you have internet friends and you make a thing. You cut it into little pieces and you put it into mailers and you ship it off to your imaginary internet friends because everybody likes getting things in the mail. And they were lovely and supportive and amazing and persistent, and badgered me into opening an Etsy shop.
Right.
And
I remember
said,
the rise of
Yeah,
Etsy and
I
how
said,
it revolutionized the crafter industry
It really
back
did.
in the day before they
was-
went all corporate.
Well, that's a whole other a whole other conversation. But yeah, it was nice because I was able to just very slowly build up my shop and build up my clientele base. And it was flexible enough, since it was online, that I could do it in my off hours. I could do it on my weekends. And as my desk job started to decline, I could build up the soap shop, and it was this lovely sort of seamless swap. It was not a repeatable process. It's not the kind of thing that I can write a book and tell people this is how you do it. It was a confluence of several very strange events that all came together perfectly, and it just sort of happened, and here we are.
A series of strange events.
A series of very strange, not unfortunate, but very strange events for sure. But I mean, not to discount the amount of work that has gone into this.
Right, because you've come a long way from glycerin soap.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I mean, when you go to your website, there's everything from, special shave soaps and scrubs and emulsifiers and moisturizers, and you have hot process soap and cold process soap and glycerin. And so how did that skill set and the ability to work with all those different ingredients, I mean, you craft from the ground up.
Yeah.
How did you make that transition to, basically being a home chemist?
Right. Yeah, well, when I started out, I had no interest in expanding. I thought, oh, glycerin soaps, that's it. That's all I need to do. But the thing is, when you have a business and you have a business with really interesting and involved customers, they come to you and they say, hey, have you thought about doing this?
Okay.
And if you're a smart person, you listen to that. You don't necessarily always take every bit of advice that people give you because, you know.
That sounds legit.
Yes, yes. But when people are coming to you repeatedly and saying, we can't find this thing, we really want this thing.
That's
Could
the
you
magic.
make this thing?
That's the magic.
That's
right
when you
there.
say, okay, you know what? I'm going to do some research and I'm going to see if I can make the thing for you. My background is in food service, and I trained as a pastry chef.
Right. I love how you
Yeah.
say food service. Oh, gourmet pastry
Well,
chef.
you know, to be fair, I flipped my share of burgers too. I mean, it was
We all
yes,
start
we
in
did.
some
I did
place.
the full gamut. But there's a lot of overlap between what I do now and my pastry work. You know, it's brute force and lots of heat and strange burns and weird smells and beautiful things at the end of it. You know, so yeah.
So the inspiration, I mean, I know like from looking at your website, I mean, you change products all the time.
I do.
There's, you know, there's a whole line. The Halloweeny is my favorite. Like just the craziest, creepiest products that come
Yeah.
out every Halloween, but different holiday stuff, but also seasonally and just randomly. You just are constantly coming up with new inspiration. Is it just finding things that you are loving, telling that story through
Yeah.
soap, and
Yeah.
you just like it just pops up just
It
like
does.
magic?
It does. I get bored very easily. I mean, there's a certain satisfaction to the production level of what I do, which is being able to hammer stuff out time and time again and really get into the groove and just know a process inside and out. You know, there's a satisfaction to that. But the development of new scents and new products is thrilling as well. And it's not something I can deny myself for very long. I go through phases, and I'm sure as a fellow artist and creative person, you understand, you have expansive phases where you can't stop creating.
Yep.
And then you have contracting phases where you kind of shut up for a while. You
Yep.
stop creating and you just watch and you listen, or in my case, you smell. You know? And so it's this nice sort of ebb and flow. There are times where I have more ideas than I know what to do with. Those do tend to coincide with the holiday rush, which is really unfortunate because I get my best ideas when I have no time to utilize them. But that's what whiteboards and notebooks are for. So I write everything down and then I revisit them, you know, times like this during the summer when things are pretty quiet and my schedule is fairly flexible. This is the time of year where I can kind of play around, I can experiment with some things and, you know, see what ideas translate well. Because honestly, sometimes I will write things down and 6 months later I will look at them and I will think, ooh,
What was I doing?
what was I doing with that? Or 6 months ago, it was totally new and different. But since then, other people have come out with similar things. Yeah, I'm not one I don't spend a whole lot of time gauging myself against what other people do because down that way lies madness, let's be fair.
That's real.
But I do like to make sure that what I'm creating is something that adds at least a different facet to something that already exists. You know, I'm a big one for filling a niche and filling a need. And if the need is already filled by 6 other perfectly good soap companies, you know, I'm good with letting them keep on doing that. And I'll go find something that isn't being done yet, you know, or isn't being done in the way that I'm doing it. You know, there's nothing new under the sun, for sure.
That's true.
But there are different shadows that you can cast on something that already exists. Yeah.
So now, as we started off, if you, like myself, are now endlessly intrigued and you want to experience both the light, the dark, and the shadow, then you absolutely need, and I swear you will not be disappointed, to visit paintboxsoapworks.com, explore the different scents, the colors, the products, the journey, it truly is a feast for the senses. And it is absolutely a way that I know when I'm playing with all my different products, it is very satisfying in a personal way. It's an indulgence that I wouldn't normally give myself.
Yeah.
And this idea that something that could be very simple, it could be very utilitarian, is instead transporting, is instead playful or beautiful or fun. That to me is the difference between, you know, a life of existence or a life that's really lived. And that to me is what art is. You know, clothing can be utilitarian or it can be an adventure. Hair can be utilitarian, you know, or it could be an adventure. And the same thing with, you know, apartments. You can live someplace that is a monk's cell, or you can cover where you live with art and fabrics, and your home can be more than where you sleep. It can be where you're restored. It can be where you entertain. It can be where you visit different worlds, where you preserve memories. And the idea that you have taken getting clean and fresh and scrubbed and turned it into an adventure, that to me is just, it's true art.
Oh, thank you so much.
Paintboxsoapworks.com. Don't miss it.
We're here with Mike Helfrich. He says tonight is not a campaign night.
Tonight is a Mike Axe night.
We are right on schedule.
All right.
We are right. It's 6:45.
Nice. On schedule.
I'm on schedule.
Just I love him, and you know he's done so much for this city. He's been a pioneer, and he's still kicking. You look around, and so a couple of places are still here that were here 30 years ago, but most of the people have changed. Mike hasn't changed. He's still here.
So the next guest who landed here on the corner of Culture and Main, and we are so excited that she did, is artist extraordinaire and art advocate Jessica Lee, who is super cool because she has pioneered more different and unusual forms of art and made them a household name and a household familiarity within the art community in this region than almost any other artist that I know. I love the energy, the motion, and the movement in her work. She is someone that even if you're like, I don't know anything about art and I don't like art, you can look at Jessica's pieces and be like, ooh, but I like that though. I really enjoy that. Not to mention what an incredibly super fun and positive spirit of York she is. So welcome to the show. I'm so glad you found your way to our little corner of cable and internet land. So, and we have actually one of your pieces, which I am beyond description in love with, here with us live in the studio. What exactly is this that we are looking at? This like explosion of color. It looks like all the crayons melted together with the iron and like the swirls. What's going on?
Well, this art form is not unlike Asian ink paintings where there's a element of happenstance. It's you will allow the materials to do what they're going to do. And so the title of this piece is called The Alchemy of Love. And the reason I pulled alchemy into that is I am a big fan of a book called What Painting Is. And the author of that book tries to describe what painting is, what actually a painter does when they paint. And as a painter, we do a lot of things instinctually, and we don't really think about it. But if someone was to study what we're doing, there's a lot of math and science in it. There's, for example, with this art form that I do, this liquid art form, it depends a lot on the density of the different colors, what they will do when they interact with each other, which colors will rise and which colors will fall. And sometimes you get this neat little cellular quality where some break apart and you see things underneath. And so I really loved the word alchemy. Reminds me of the book that I love to read and how he describes painting. And I think of love sort of like that alchemy. We're searching for love, and no one can, I mean, how many poems and books and songs have we written about love, and still
That's true.
it's such a broad thing that it's bigger than what we can define. So this piece is just sort of a salute to that alchemy of love.
Now, I know with Japanese ink paintings, they actually pour ink into a liquid medium like water, and then the paper is just sort of laid on top of it, almost like those magical oil slicks that appear in the puddles, but then the paint can adhere to the paper and lift up.
Right.
Is this the same type of thing? Instead of the paint being applied onto the canvas, it's actually applied into something that moves?
It is applied into something that moves. It's a pouring medium, P-O-U-R-I-N-G, like pouring a glass. So the pouring medium helps the paint move more smoothly across the picture plane, whatever it would be, a canvas or a panel or even paper. You could try it with paper. So I think what you were maybe thinking of is like marbling paper. You know, you have this bin, and they put a liquid in it. It could be, I think I did it when I was a kid with cornstarch or something. And then you drip the paint into the pan, and it floats on top of the liquid. And you slide the paper in underneath and then lift it up, and it lifts the paint right out of the pan.
Which I have seen and is super cool.
It's so cool.
But with this pouring medium, you can actually do this straight onto the canvas.
Right, so there's a couple different ways that I do it. So you're getting a secret tip. People have been asking. You could do it two different ways. One is called a dirty pour, and that's when you take a container.
Sounds like a bar drink. That sounds tasty.
Yeah, it does sound good, right?
Yeah.
So you can take a container and you put your liquid medium in there, and then you put your paint inside, and you give it a little bit of a swirl, maybe jostle it a little bit, and then you pour it out onto the canvas, and what it does, it does. So what you've controlled with that was your colors, basically, and the direction that you've moved the pour. The other way that you can do it is you can pour the medium straight onto the canvas, and then you add your paint on there. And the movement then comes when you tilt your canvas about, or, and I've done dragging tools through it, you know, a pointer, or maybe a brush or something like that.
So it really becomes a way of painting like with your whole body. I mean, it becomes about all the different tools. It becomes about the way you move. It becomes that you can move not just the brush, but the actual canvas itself. You know, everything becomes about movement and motion.
Yes.
And then that's captured so much. I mean, when I look at this piece, I see so much of the movement and the motion of it and the direction that the painting's going and the depth that that gives, as well as the bright and incredible colors and the shapes that they make. And that's what really intrigued me. The first time I saw your art, I had no idea who you were. And I saw some paintings, and I think it might have been in Ironic in the
think it
coffee
probably
house
was.
downtown, and which is a great artist coffee house at 256 West Philadelphia Street. And there were just all these, it was like being inside a kaleidoscope.
Oh, yeah.
Because it felt like the walls were moving. There were all these different spaces that had motion and movement, and that struck me even before the colors. And I love color. I love color so much. I love it to life.
Yeah.
But it was the fact that I felt like the walls around me were moving with this sense of motion, and I was so intrigued by that. And when you have a fixed canvas that you're moving the brush over in this controlled way, it just doesn't feel with that same sense of vibrant, as if it's still in the midst of being created. And I just love that. I feel like I'm almost watching the painting birthing itself, even though it's dried and fixed, which I just thought was so cool. But you do work in other additional mediums and are even discovering some new ones right now.
Right. So I worked for 2 years downtown in the Market View Arts building, and made so many friends, wonderful people every day. And one of my dear friends handed down to me some pastels. And just this week, I've starting to learn how to use the pastels.
Totally different
Behaves
medium.
Completely differently. I feel awkward. I promised myself that no matter what the struggle was with this new medium, I was going to push myself through it. I really had, when I lost the job downtown, financially, I then could not afford the materials for the
and that was, I mean, the whole arts organization shuttered its doors. It was just one of those where the job simply didn't exist anymore. And that had been your form of artistic expression and outreach into the community.
Yes, it was a big part of my identity was with that. And running that gallery there really was my passion. I loved the artists there, and I was energized by the community. You know, everyone who came in, and even the art lovers that came in inspired me as much as the artists who put their work on the wall.
For sure.
So my shift now, not being able to afford this type of work that I had been doing, I've made up my mind that it will not stop me, you know, because artists always have a struggle. There's always a struggle for everyone. But you know, you think of Kalo and the pain that she was in her lifetime. And when she lay in bed, she was still, Frida, she was still creating, you know. Matisse, when he started to lose, his sight, and he moved to cutting paper.
Just laying on his back with scissors.
If they can do that, I have to get past, you know, my own little struggle at the moment with the finances. So I know I can find a way to keep creating and to keep moving forward as an artist. So I will try the pastels and we'll see how it goes. And I have watercolors as well, but so we'll try that and see what happens.
So have you found that over time you have moved sort of naturally between genres and between different styles of expression? Is that something that you have ever done on purpose because you wanted to challenge yourself or get inspired?
Yeah, that was definitely something. I think when I started creating, of course, and you know, as a young person, my dad was an artist, and he was just fantastic at science fiction, fantasy type things.
The fantasy art, that's a serious genre right
there. And realism. He could do realism, but he could draw someone he could do it all in his mind. And I always have to look at someone, you know, I have to draw from observation. But as a young woman, I decided that I wanted to try oil painting, and got to college, and I actually studied under my first year under Phyllis Disher Fredericks, who you probably know. Yeah, she was my first painting instructor, and learned so much from her. And then I left college for a little while, and I started a family. I had a son, and oil paint is so not good for anybody.
Yeah, that's
get
not
their
really
hands
a
on.
family-friendly
No.
genre right there.
Right. So then I deliberately went to acrylics, and with acrylics, I learned to paint very quickly because they dry quickly.
They sure do.
And now I have quite a lot of friends at the York Art Association who will tease me about being a speed demon through a painting because I paint so quickly, with that. And so with the pastels, it's teaching me to slow down, to slow down again. So I found that, yes, I do switch genres, and sometimes I do it on purpose. When I started doing the liquid art, I had seen art similar, and it was made with resin. And, one of the natural things about an artist is that we're problem solvers.
Yep.
I cannot, I'm too clumsy and accident prone to use a torch for the resin. So I said, there's got to be another way. So that's how I began to experiment to get to the liquid pours. And what I loved about the liquid pours was it was very humbling for me as an artist, because the material said, you step back, it's my turn, I'm going to use you as a tool. So I became a tool to the medium. I had to open myself up to the universe and let it do what it was going to do, and be humbled by if I did not have the control of the medium that I had always had before as a painter, And so now I'm the speed demon, and I have these pastels, and they're saying, slow down, it's time to slow down. And in my life, that is what's happening to me as well, because I have so much stress, as we all do, but I have a teenager, so it's
fun.
like, oh my gosh, so slow down is what I need to do, so the pastels are slowing me down.
Wow, even as you're describing each different style of artwork, it's almost like it's a person that's telling you something and teaching you something and shaping you. So that art has been a shaping force, even outside of it.
Yeah, and I think for me, being an artist, it has been a very intuitive, experience where I have to listen to what the materials, are dictating to me, and respond to that. And even when you make marks on a canvas, you get immediate feedback, not from your peers necessarily, but you get this immediate feedback from the canvas. If you're really looking at it, does that look right? No, that's out of balance. You learn to respond intuitively to what's happening on the canvas. So that's, very, very fun part of it,
Yeah.
But I will always say, as you were talking about my pieces at Ironic, when you first saw them, I've always said that art, then, for the artist, it's the process of creating the art. But the art isn't really art until it's shared with the observer or the viewer or the listener. So really, it didn't finish its life until it started interacting with you, Carla. When it was in Ironic, it started a conversation with you, started to pull out of you, your feelings or your, reactions to it. So then it finally finished its journey when it got to be seen.
So do you ever create artwork just for yourself, or do you always create to share and to form relationship with a third party, with someone that you can't control how it's going to be received?
Well, I think actually I always start it for myself. I think I always do. And then I realize it's like a child. You have to let it go, So I guess while I'm creating it, it's always for me. I never start a piece and say, oh, I think people will buy people will buy pink paintings. Now I think I'll paint pink. You know,
Right.
I never start that way. I just kind of hope that when I put it out there, that it's something that is understood and responded to. Because really, it's, you know, it's you. You know, you're putting some piece of yourself out there into the world, and you're hoping for the best to come back, you know, bounce back at you, you know. But you don't know. You never know how it'll be received. So I guess for me, then I think that's when I started saying, maybe I'll share this on social media and see what happens, you know. So I started sharing a lot on Facebook, and I started Instagram, and that became a whole new community, you know, in itself. And I met so many people. I met someone at the gallery one time who had come, I think from Philadelphia or Pittsburgh to see me.
Wow.
And I was like, wow.
From Instagram.
Really, you came to see me? I mean, that was amazing. But also just running into people that I know all the time, or you know, and then suddenly they'll say, hey, you know, I saw that post on Facebook, and you put out a lot of work, or you know, they'll give me some kind of feedback, and I'm always surprised, you know, that, oh, people are actually paying attention. So yeah, that's been a whole different, you know, way to get critiques and get, you know, feedback from people. Yeah.
No, I definitely think that as artists, and this has come up in other interviews with, you know, writers and people of different genres, even, you know, today as we've been filming, this idea that when you put work out there, when you put it into the public sphere, you are releasing it to a certain extent. You have no idea who it's going to end up in their hands, who's going to be consuming it, what their environment or their mood is. You know, it is no longer just hanging it in a gallery where this is the only copy. Once you put it on the internet, once you put it in a book, once you put it in any form where it can just find its way to people, that you will be astonished at the ways that people interact with your work and the ways that it speaks to them, because their context is so different than yours. The way that they interpret and the filter they look at it through is so far removed from what you were thinking when you created it, that you can absolutely not predict how someone's going to take your art into themselves and then give it back to you.
That's so true. That's so true. And for me, that's one of the reasons that I like abstract art more than representational art as an artist, because I don't want to tell my viewer what to think. Like, I don't want to say, oh, here's a flower, you know, and you receive it as a flower, and it is what it is, or it symbolizes this or that. But if I have non-representational abstract, which is abstract that doesn't look like anything you can recognize, then the fun part for me is then hearing the feedback of what someone else saw or felt in it, because I haven't spoken to you in a language that is necessarily precise and understood. It's a language that is more primal and more it more pulls out of you that human, you know, that human truth that's in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you are inspired and want to know more about the primal human truth that lies inside you, I encourage you to enter the jungle of color that is Jessica Lee's Instagram and Facebook page. You absolutely must not miss. There is a tremendous amount of wonderful work that's available, not just online, but also available at different galleries around town. So you can still go to Ironic and pick up some pieces at 256 West Philadelphia. And where else can people find you?
Well, now I've joined the King's Courtyard Artist Collective.
A great gallery now on the east side. So that is 250
East.
No, 124.
Right, 124.
That is 124 East King Street in York, which is a great artist-owned and operated gallery space. So that's amazing that you'll be there. That's fantastic.
Yes. I love it. It's a new community for me. You know, the idea of being, you know, interacting and working as a collective, you know, with another group of artists.
That's right. It's all about getting inspired.
It is.
So make sure that you find Jessica's art and that you stay inspired. Thanks for joining us on another amazing episode of Spotlight, a production of Culture in Maine, York's cultural showcase. We want to hear your ideas, and we want you to be a part of the show. Whether you're an artist or a fan, send us an email to cultureinmaine@gmail.com. Check us out on the web at wrct.tv, or make sure to find all of our past episodes on YouTube at youtube.com/White Rose Community TV. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great week. We'll see you soon, right here on the corner of Culture and Maine.